What's up, Astro T Podcast? It's your girl, Supernovajazz. We are back with another episode, and we're going to tap into the original essence of this podcast, which is astrology. And one thing I love about astrology is you don't have to look a certain way, you don't have to be a certain way to really value its systems and tap into the essence of how it helps. And this is why I got my girl here, because she is a true sidereal queen and we've connected through astrology. So there is literally no better person to be here.
Hello, Astro T Podcast. My name is Millicent and I am a Latina from the Caribbean, now living in South Florida. I am an intuitive true sidereal astrologer. I help people connect to their true celestial placements and therefore their true soul's path. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram at _enchanted1. O-N-E, not the number 1.
We're going to talk about tropical astrology, sidereal, Ophiuchus.
Ophiuchus.
We've been practicing our lines. We're like, how do you say it? And we're going to talk about cuss too. And we're just going to let it flow. We have met through social media, which is such a very Gemini, Aquarius energy. Your Instagram used to be Leo.
Yes, so my Instagram used to be Enchanted Leo.
And then I noticed a change. And then I'm going on your stories and I'm seeing you talk more about sidereal and just really owning it. So before we get into the details, I want to know, why did you make that change?
I have been studying astrology for many years. You can kind of say I was born into it. Mm-hmm. My mom has always been into it. And so even as a little girl, I knew about it, you know? So in 2018 or so, I started really going deep into astrology. Mm-hmm. Of course, you always start with tropical astrology. At that point, I thought that was all there was, right? And as I got deeper into astrology, I believe it was in 2021 or 2022, where I decided to download an astronomy app. Because I was fascinated by the celestial bodies. And I was like, I want to be the kind of astrologer that my ancestors were. I want to see the sky and understand the constellations. And once I downloaded the astronomy app and I would start comparing what I was reading online to what I was seeing in the physical sky, I realized that there was a huge discrepancy. So thus started my journey to true sidereal astrology. I started tapping into what are the actual placements that are going on right now. So, for example, in true sidereal astrology, we say that March 21st would be the first day of Aries season, right? But when I would look at my astronomy app, I would realize, but wait, the sun is in the constellation of Pisces. And it doesn't move into the constellation of Aries until April 21st. And that's how basically my journey started, just comparing and contrasting and realizing that I wanted to align more with nature, because I felt aligning with nature was aligning with God and my soul and what my soul chose for me.
I love that. Yeah. And it's just beautiful to know that there are a variety of systems and ways of the Ascension process. So a lot of people just know their sun sign, right? Yeah, and like you're saying, like the tropical astrology is the window to go even deeper. So if you're feeling conflicted, if you're feeling like nerves, like how we were feeling even starting this podcast, that means you're on the right path, right?
Absolutely.
And you're probably even ready for the information. But what's nerve-wracking is if the information contradicts your belief system, and if you were so tied into like, no, tropical, are you gonna allow your ego to get in the way of you exploring new ways of being and getting to the same point of ascension, which is the higher self? We all get there, granted, whatever life you're in and how ready you are.
I also went through a huge time of denial You know, in tropical, I am a Leo sun. And
and you claimed it proudly. It was your Instagram name.
Exactly. I claimed it. I had that Leo persona. And when I actually checked the astronomy on my birthday, I was like, wait, the sun is in the constellation of Cancer. That would make me a Cancer sun. And this is why I changed my Instagram name, because it was a process of shedding what I was no longer resonating with. Because with the tropical astrology being a Leo sun, I always identified with Leo placements. Like, I felt very Leo. I mean, look at the hair. Like,
I was just gonna say, look at the hair.
Like, mane is everything, right? But I really didn't have many water placements. And then when I did check my True Sidereal Astrology, I realized that I actually do, right? So I did go through this process of at first not accepting it. I'm saying like, no, I'm not a Cancer. There's no way. I am a Leo. You know, nobody ever wants to give up their Leo placements.
No one.
And so it took me some time. I want to say it took maybe like a year, where I started just realizing, I'm like, what am I holding on to? Like this idea that I am a Leo. First of all, we have every single sign in our chart at some area of our lives. So holding on to your sun sign is, you know, a bit ridiculous because you are much more than your sun sign. You have a moon sign, you have a Venus sign. There's different areas of your life that touch on different parts of the astrology. So after a long year of like, no, there's no way I'm a Cancer, I'm not emotional, you know, like the stereotypical depictions of Cancer, I started to finally accept it. And one beautiful thing that happened once I accepted it is that I was really able to give myself the space to be who God wants me to be. I came here to be sensitive, to be intuitive, to be a water sign, to be a nurturer. All the things I had been repressing because I was identifying with this big personality of the Leo placements. So it really was like kind of a dark night of the soul, because I was shedding something I had held on to so strongly for so long. And I can say now, being very comfortable saying that I'm a Cancer, because it is literally what I am, that I feel more aligned with my soul now. I feel like somehow I gave myself permission to be that person, to be that sensitive nurturer that, you know, we depict Cancer as, which they are. And at that moment, I leveled up, because I got aligned and I realized, wait a second, my soul chose these celestial placements when it incarnated in this body. Why am I not gonna accept that? You know?
Right.
And yeah, I feel like that was for like a coming back to myself moment. So I think that it's important for people to know that at the beginning there could be some resistance when you see that your chart in True Sidereal is completely different than in tropical. But just know that these are the celestial bodies. This is where they were at the time of your birth. That means something. There is meaning behind that, and your soul has a reason for choosing that for you.
And I love how, as a Leo, right, ruled by the sun, it's so symbolic, because tropical astrology, which is Western astrology, is more sun-centric.
Yes.
And the sun represents ego. And I feel like on the Western side of the hemisphere, we're very much more egoic over here. We definitely stick to identity. We all have to be seen. We all have to be heard. So when you ascend past that, you are really just allowing yourself to have that ego death. So while we're talking about tropical astrology, because you said you totally disengaged.
Yeah, I did. I'm like a part of me doesn't even remember my placements. It's like I compartmentalized it, and I was like, yeah, that's not who I am anymore.
And I feel like once you know it, you know it.
Right.
So the way you just disengage, it's just part of you, that knowledge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like I've integrated it. Like you said,
It's integrated. It's ascended. We learned it. We're on to the next lesson.
Exactly.
So tropical astrology is way more season based. We look at the seasons every year. Like Christmas is around the same time, winter's around the same time, spring's around the same time. So that's how Western astrology more so operates. Now, I think people get a little bit more confused when they're like, oh, Placidus, whole sign system. That is just a house system.
Right.
Today, we're talking about the different forms of astrology itself.
Right.
So there's still signs, there's still planets, there's still degrees. There is just shifted signs because in tropical it's just the same. We're not taking into consideration that we're moving in this galaxy.
In tropical, every March 21st is 0 degree Aries, right? And then June 21st, 0 degree Cancer. Mm-hmm. And December 21st, 0 degree Capricorn, right? And those mark the beginnings of the seasons. And True Sidereal, Christmas is during Sagittarius season. And spring is happening during Pisces season now. So it has changed with the times. And tropical astrology is basically using the same sky, the same format that it was incepted with, which was 2,000 years ago. And this is why it's off. There was a point where it was aligned with the celestial bodies, where tropical and true sidereal were the same and they were aligned. But as time has gone on, that has shifted approximately 1 degree every 72 years. So, which seems like not much, but over 2,000 years, now you're looking at it's basically an entire sign difference.
And then in tropical astrology, you're only really taking into consideration the 12 signs we know.
Right.
House systems, like we said, are still very prevalent. Not just because you use tropical astrology doesn't mean you also use degree theory. I think degree theory is what makes it solidifies tropical astrology to get to the depths. Because I wasn't, as an astrologer, I wasn't going deeper reading my clients' charts just with planets, houses, and aspects. There needed to be more. So the degree theory is great, but now I'm in the position now where I'm feeling sidereal being more prevalent into my practice. I love how you use also numerology, different modalities. I'm just feeling that shift. So since I'm feeling that shift, let's shift into sidereal, which is going to be beautiful because I feel like you're going to be educating me a lot. So guys, just because this is the Astro Tea podcast, I'm not afraid to admit that there are certain areas in astrology where it is a little dark for me. I'm okay with saying I don't know.
Right. And that's the beauty of astrology, is that we are eternal students. There is no astrologer that can claim that they know everything. If they do, then they're grifting because at the end of the day, we are just students of the mysteries of astrology.
Right.
And as you know, you can always go deeper. There is always more. I mean, we're talking about true sidereal, but let's not forget that there's also Vedic astrology and nakshatras, and there's just much more. So I also don't have all the answers, but I know my practice.
Mm-hmm. Right. And if you're listening to this podcast and you want to chime in to the greatness of sidereal and tropical, leave a comment. Let us know. We can definitely talk more in depth into any particular things that stand out with sidereal or also Vedic. Like, my question is, what is the difference? What is the difference between Vedic and sidereal?
Right. So in true sidereal, I am using the 13 constellations. Ophiuchus. Okay. Ophiuchus sits between Scorpio and Sagittarius, and it is a constellation that every planet in our solar system travels through. just like the other 12 constellations. So in Vedic astrology, they don't use a 13th, that's number one. And they also have it divided into equal parts. In True Sidereal Astrology, we use the actual sizes of the constellations. And while in tropical, everything is an equal 30 degrees, in True Sidereal, it's not, because every constellation is a different size.
Yeah, can you even imagine someone going up there and measuring? Oh, yeah, guys, it's actually an even 30.
Right.
Like,
So they did that just to make things easier. But the truth is that, for example, Virgo season is like 45 days long because it is the biggest constellation that we have. And Aries is a super tiny constellation. Cancer is also really small. Scorpio is extremely small. So in True Sidereal Astrology, we would use the same sizes of the constellations and, again, the 13th zodiac sign, which is Ophiuchus. So with True Sidereal Astrology, we're going to use the real placements of the planets in real time. So it's as simple as astronomy. If the sun is in the constellation of Pisces, that's what we're going to go with, because that's where it's at, right? As versus tropical, whereas, you know, like what we mentioned earlier, the start of spring would be 0 degree Aries on March 21st, even though in the celestial heavens, the sun is really still in the constellation of Pisces. So that's basically the difference. It's just we're using the planets in real time in their real position.
And what I love about sidereal astrology is the constellations are taken into consideration. I just want to highlight that. In tropical, you don't have the constellations. There's no extra storytelling there.
Right. There's no... So, and this is a conflict that it had with tropical also, is that there are some astrologers and people that claim that the constellations have nothing to do with the signs. And I just don't understand that, because when tropical astrology came to be, it was aligned with the celestial bodies. So that's how it started. So for us now to say 2,000 years later, it's like, oh no, it has nothing to do with the constellations. It's like, of course it does. That's how we got our zodiac wheel, right?
With Ophiuchus too, there is the galactic center in there.
Yes. So Ophiuchus and Scorpio and Sagittarius are basically like all right next to each other, right? And the galactic center is there between Ophiuchus and Sagittarius. And anytime that any planet goes to the galactic center, like as we know, Scorpio season is intense, right? This is what we would call Scorpio season in tropical, right? Everybody knows that Scorpios are like intense. It's like death, metaphorical death, sex, all kinds of things that have a lot of transformational qualities to them. So the galactic center being there, for me, it makes a lot of sense, because we go from Scorpio, which is the metaphorical death, to then Sagittarius. Like, I feel like there needs to be an in-between, because as we know, Sagittarius energy is lively, optimism, the philosophy of life, like, you know, it's the up and up, right? It's like the ascension, the higher mind. So Ophiuchus, sitting between these two constellations, is symbolic to the rebirth. So the rebirth that we usually attribute to Scorpio season actually happens in the integration when we get to Ophiuchus. And after we have been reborn and integrated our shadows in Scorpio season, we come out on the other side in Sagittarius season. Now we have a new outlook on life, optimism. We are seeing things differently. Our philosophy has changed. And this is a transformation that we go through every astrological year.
Right. And I just think it makes so much sense how Ophiuchus is in Scorpio and
right next to Scorpio.
Right next to Scorpio. I'm sorry.
They do actually overlap each other.
Okay.
So the constellations are a bit overlapped. So that is technically right.
Right. And I just think it's very prevalent because Scorpio energy represents mysticism, what you can't see, the true depths and the transformation. It just makes sense. It's like a storytelling aspect. It gives it more characteristics of, okay, I can understand this energy a little bit better instead of judging it.
Absolutely. And in Ophiuchus, by the way, its ruling planet is supposed to be Chiron. Ophiuchus is very unique because it's not water, it's not fire, it's not earth. You know, it is its own thing. It is ether. And something that I love about this is that while water, earth, fire, and air are all elements that we have here on the 3D plane, ether connects all of it. Everything is the ether, right? And when you look at it symbolically, when you get to Ophiuchus, you are basically integrating all parts: the fire, the earth, the air. So and then you could start the cycle over, going into the fire, the rebirth. With Ophiuchus too, the reason I include this in my readings is because that part of your chart is going to be the part of your chart that you transform the most. You're going to be reborn there many times over. As you know, wherever Scorpio sits in your chart, you're also going to go through that rebirth part, right? Except we're attributing the rebirth to Scorpio when it really belongs to Ophiuchus, right? So I love to include them in my readings. I think it's super important for people to know what part of your life will you be transcending in. Yeah, because there's no denying the celestial placements are where they're at. There's just no denying that. And there's no denying that when your soul chose your body, if you guys believe in reincarnation, I certainly do. And I do incorporate a lot of like past lives into my readings and things. When your soul chose to be you for this life, it chose those celestial placements, quite literally. You know? And I feel like that gives you a huge clue into who you came here to be. And like we had discussed earlier, how tropical is more like the matrix you, the you that is projected onto you.
Right, the personality.
The personality, right. But who are you actually here to be? So like I had mentioned, when I thought I was a Leo sun, I had been denying that part of myself that was sensitive, right? Only now realizing that I actually came here to be that, and I feel so much more comfortable in my own body being able to express that. So that's the quote unquote psyop of tropical, right? Because you are adjusting to be something that you're just not. It's not your ego personality. You might have that same sign that's in your sun sign in tropical. You might have it somewhere else in your chart, and you do, because we have all the signs, right? But if you're just attaching to that as this is my sun sign, like you're not really giving yourself the grace to be who you came here to be. You're not giving yourself that space to grow into who God and your soul wants you to express.
Do you think it's counterproductive to use whole sign system with sidereal, since you're saying the houses are not even?
I have learned, when I use tropical, I used to use whole signs. And as I have switched to True Sidereal, I just don't use whole signs at all anymore for that same reason. I've learned several things, and one of those things is that energy is fluid, as we all know, right? In tropical, you always hear people saying there's no such thing as cusp. You are either a 0 degree or you're not. And it's like, no, I don't think that's accurate, because energy flows. One energy goes into the next energy, you know, and it's a wave. So I use Placidus, because I don't think that area of your life is only affected by that one constellation. If you have 2 that flow in there, maybe 3 depending on the size, then you're gonna have all that energy in that sector of your life. And I think that's important to know. You're cutting yourself off when you're using the whole signs, because you're only directing it to that one portion of your life, even though it probably leaks into several others.
That's so conflicting for me too, because it's like, what do you tell clients? Because were you doing readings in tropical first, or when you started readings, you just went straight to sidereal?
So I would do readings in tropical first. I also explored my own chart in depth, so I did a lot of readings in tropical.
Were there any clients, once you told them you're making this change, that were like, oh, I don't want a reading anymore?
No, actually, people are like, I want to know what the true placements are. Who doesn't want to know the truth, right? We are all seeking the truth because we know where there is truth, there is freedom, right? So I feel like people are even more enthusiastic because I don't think there's that many true sidereal astrologers out there. And people are extremely curious about what their real soul cosmic blueprint is.
Right. And I feel true resonance to both. Do you feel like you can resonate with both, your tropical and your sidereal? Because me, I'm a Cancer stellium, but when you look at my sidereal, it's Gemini stellium, and they're both very prevalent.
Right. So I feel like with tropical, like I said, I have disengaged so hard from tropical. But I will say that I saw a different way of looking at it. I was no longer a Leo sun. Now I was a Leo rising. And I was like, oh, now I get it. Why I felt the Leo energy somewhere deep inside, right?
Because you were Virgo sun.
I was a
Virgo rising, and you were like, huh? I even was like, no way.
Right. I was like, there's no way. Like the hair, guys, the hair, So I feel that tropical is basically, it's a good jump off point if you want to just learn about yourself. But when you really want to know thyself, like you want to know who your soul is, who your soul came to be, you got to check out your true sidereal placements. Tropical astrology is just more simplified. It's simplified, and that's why it's a good jump off point. Learn about the houses, because the houses are still the houses, the planets are still what they are, but once you get to that point where you kind of like know the basics and you want to really explore who you are and discover your real life path, because that's another thing too, your nodes also change. Like I had my north node in Taurus in tropical, only to realize it's actually in Aries. A big difference, it's totally different energy. There is value in tropical. That's why it's prevalent. It's easier. It's just more simplified. And I think anybody can start there and start to learn about astrology. But once you go into true sidereal, now we're talking about your soul. We're not just talking about the personality, like you said. And tropical is good for that, like to know like the ego. Right? But
which is needed.
Right, it is needed. It's a part of the ascension process. All parts of you are to be integrated at some point.
I think it's very similar to the schooling system, right? You learn math from first grade to graduate school, maybe depending on what you're majoring, but it's prevalent to the very tippy top. Are you still going to be reading a middle book school when now you're in 12th grade? No, you're not.
Exactly. It's a building block, so you have to learn about these things, and just like any esoteric knowledge, you have to build, right? I think that it's only something that's really practiced here in the West. And that should give you a clue because, as we know, things in the West get corrupted. Things in the West aren't always accurate or of the highest good. So yeah, start there, but don't close yourself off, because once you get to true sidereal, you might have to unlearn.
Just think of the Saturn placement right now in tropical. It's Pisces, which is very spiritual. It's the unknown. It's going deeper. We talked about it in the past podcast, but in sidereal, it's Aquarius, which represents networking, knowledge, and actually Aquarius represents astrology.
Yeah.
So there might be a bunch of tough decisions that have to be made to expand that knowledge. And when you connect astrology, because everything's connected, when you connect it to tarot, it's the star card.
Yes, it does. And because Saturn is in Aquarius right now, I think that it is a feel with, yes, it is about connecting. It's also about a deeper truth too. I think that with Aquarius, we are learning that there's more to know. Because Aquarius is different. Aquarius is like, I'm not really going to do things how everybody's doing them. I'm going to just forge my own path. And this is kind of what's happening with astrology right now. We're kind of seeing like a break, right? Where things are different, where everybody was practicing tropical before. And now it's like the comment section's always lit. You know, it's like, well, what about True Sidereal? What about the
And
real
people are
placements?
literally debating about it and getting heated conversations.
Yes, it's all about attachments. And I think that is a big lesson you can learn from learning tropical astrology, is letting go. Because once you learn that, and then now you're gonna move on, you have to let that go. Like, I have totally let that identity go, and I have embraced the true celestial placements. And I think that's, like you said, that's part of the ascension process. It's part of your spiritual growth. You need that because we all have lessons to learn on letting go.
So do you think there's any negative, or maybe something that is not quite there with sidereal that tropical has? The answer is giving no. She's like, no. And that's okay.
You know, I would say this, not tropical, but I would say that Vedic has an advantage with the nakshatras, because within each constellation are even smaller archetypes of each sign.
Yes.
And that is a beautiful thing, because now you're going even deeper. So I think True Sidereal can miss that. I think that they don't incorporate the nakshatras, although there are some True Sidereal astrologers that do that. So I think that would be where True Sidereal is maybe lacking. Mm-hmm. But again, this is an evolution, and we're evolving into the astrologers that our ancestors were.
Is there a moment where you still have to pull up the tropical chart?
Okay.
And kind of maybe even put them together?
I think I did that at the very beginning when I was transitioning, like to see like what's the difference, like what was this saying and what is this saying. You know, I was comparing to see where there were overlaps. Now at the point that I'm at now, I don't anymore. I don't pull up the tropical anymore. I only strictly look at the True Sidereal. But when I was making the switch, I did, because again, energy is fluid. So I was flowing this way, flowing that way, and you know, coming together to have harmony between both until eventually I let go. It's like anything in life. Eventually, you're just gonna fully let go, right? But at the beginning, you know, it's like breaking up with an ex. You know, maybe you'll see them a couple times after you break up, but eventually you're gonna be like, I'm gonna block you. It's not that tropical astrology is wrong in how it describes Cancer, how it describes Gemini. No, those descriptions are correct. The house descriptions are correct. What's incorrect is where the placements are. So it's just about the sign, basically.
So you can still manifest with tropical astrology, is what you're saying too.
No, I'm not saying that. You're saying that.
Okay, yeah. I guess I am saying you can manifest with both. It's which one are you ready for?
I agree with that. Yeah, where are you on your spiritual path? You know, just because I was practicing tropical astrology 3 years ago doesn't make me wrong or evil. That's just where I was, and now I'm here. And I feel like we have to also give ourselves permission to be where we're at, but understand that there's always more.
So I'm gonna play this little game with you because I want it to be very organic.
Okay.
And I'm going to say an area in your life, and I want you really quickly, if it's one word, 2 words, a sentence, tell me how astrology has helped you make it better, whether it was like really bad healing that was necessary or anything specific that you've manifested with astrology. So love,
yes, I have definitely embraced more of that Gemini, Taurus, Venus, because we had discussed earlier Orion, which is another constellation which we haven't touched on. I have my Venus placement between Gemini and Taurus. So I was always kind of like conflicted, like which one is it? You know, like am I the social butterfly lover, or am I like the sensual, you know, give me all the love and the nice chocolate? And I've really embraced the fact that I'm a little bit of both. And that's why I feel that energy is fluid, because we want to discount it. We want to just pick one. No, my Venus is in between both. So I'm going to embrace both archetypes.
And when you felt that resonate with you, did you see the change in your love life?
In my love life, yes, because again, once you understand who you really are, you give yourself grace to be that person.
Okay, the next one is money. How did you allow astrology to help you manifest money or have a better relationship with money?
With money, definitely also astrology, but also numerology, right? Because in my True Sidereal Progress chart, my moon is in Taurus now. And as we know, Taurus is money, values, finances. And when it moved into that, I felt that shift. Like things changed. All of a sudden, my standards got higher. I was not accepting less than I was worth. I was like, oh, this isn't for me? Cool. Then I'm moving on. I was saying no to the things that didn't align with what I wanted from my life. And that actually allowed me to tap into my feminine, which coincidentally is where you receive, right? In your feminine energy is where you stay open. And as soon as that happened, money just flowed to me from all angles. It was literally almost like magic.
For me, for instance, as soon as I felt the lunar node shift, and this is in tropical, in Taurus and Scorpio, the North Node went into my first house. I did feel that quality of people being able to see me. I got hired in the best position I've ever had in my career. That's when I took the PM course. That's when let me get the certification so these big wigs can recognize me as well. You know, I do everything very on a grass-fed level, but if I want the income and the funds, because they're out there, you just have to align yourself with it. Then, you know, I gotta put it on paper. I gotta make my resume sound a little bit more fancier. So, okay, so last one, Ancestry. How did astrology help you tap back into Ancestry?
Realizing that my moon is actually in Sagittarius, and I'm here to really bring forth that knowledge. And also, by the way, realizing that my Mercury is actually in the 12th house. And that gave me a big up. Yeah, because
Mercury's in the 12th house. Oof.
Yeah, I feel like when you have the Mercury in the 12th house, you have like one foot dipped into eternity, where you're just like, I can bring that message forward from the other side. And that really helped me with my ancestry, but also incorporating that I am the ancestor I've been waiting for. Like, it's me. I'm here now to deliver the message, and all the ones that came before me had prepared me for that. That makes sense.
Yes.
Do you feel
very,
that?
very
yeah,
much so.
And you know, in tropical, I had a Capricorn moon, and it's like, no, nothing against Capricorn moons. They are great. They are go-getters. Like, they climb the ladder, and they are hardworking, very centered on being stable and making money and leaving a legacy. But I just never resonated.
And what's your moon inside of you?
Sagittarius.
Oh,
and this is why astrology for me is my passion. Thinking higher, thinking deeper, going further than what you think is necessary.
Teaching people.
And teaching people also, spreading the message and waking people up to their true placement. For me, it is truly an honor. Your soul is in the driver's seat of your body for this lifetime. And your soul wants nothing more than for you to align with its mission.
And it feels so good when that moment of your soul and your mind just
are in coherence.
And they're coherent and they're friends.
And your heart, because that's the seat of your soul, right? So that is really what Sagittarius is all about to me. That the centaur, that half human, half beast, you know, it represents the instinctual part of yourself, but also the spiritual part of yourself coming together as one. And if you know anything about Sagittarius energy, you know that Sagittarius is also the body, but the higher mind as well. It is bringing in that knowledge to move the collective forward.
Yeah, astrology, no matter how versatile and how many different interests I have, it's a beautiful foundation. And I love what it's done for me. I've manifested so much with astrology.
Me too.
But I feel like what's important is to not judge. Like, judging and astrology do not go together. I've seen people not talk to people because they were this sign, and then
that's ridiculous. You know, it is. I see that so much, and I'm sure you do too, where people are like, oh, you're a Scorpio? No, I don't fuck with you. Or you're a Gemini? I don't fuck with you. It's like, dude, every sign has its lower octave and its higher octave. Every single one, even Leos, which are like the golden, you know what I mean? Like everybody loves being a Leo. And I think that you're right about the not judging. It's all about us coming together, really. Like, what stage are you on? Accept that you're there. Give yourself grace to be there, you know?
Right.
Even if you're not where you want to be like, okay, recognize, hey, this is where I'm at. And just move along on your path, and don't also judge yourself, because that's also another thing where maybe somebody had claimed their identity so much in tropical, but now they're judging themselves because they're like, oh my God, but I said I was this. My screen name is, you know, this sign, and I have a tattoo of a scorpion. Turns out I'm actually a Virgo. You know, whatever the case may be. I feel like it's important not to judge others, but also not to judge ourselves, and give ourselves that grace, and give others the same grace that you would want somebody to give you.
And I'm glad you said that, because I do find myself, my ego battling when now the conversation of astrology is taboo, when people are like, oh, here goes astrology girl. You've seen that. Like,
oh, of course.
Oh my God. Cancel.
Those are not my people. That's how I see it. I'm like, if you don't vibe with the things that light me up, you're just not my people. And I'm okay with that, because that, again, would be attachment. Like, I don't need to hold on to you. If you don't like that space, that's cool. Moving on. Making space for the ones that see me for who I am and appreciate that.
I love that. And
those people that shame astrology, I'm like, just say that you don't understand it. That's it.
Yeah, it's like the boys that are mean to you. Just say you really like me, but you don't have space in your heart to want to love. You know,
right. Or just say that you don't understand astronomy, because that's what astrology is. Like,
yeah.
Don't say that it's not real. Say that you don't understand it, because if you knew what I knew, then you know it was real.
And I think it's also important to not force anything.
Absolutely.
On anyone, because once you start forcing, it becomes a religion.
Absolutely. Oh my God. And you know, we've seen that for sure.
Yeah, like, this is a safe space. We're not supposed to create right, wrong. We're all in a gray space, and it's also okay to say you don't know. So I want to close this podcast off with just a word of gratitude. I'm just really grateful to allow myself to be. I'm just really grateful. I'm even okay with coming on this podcast that I name Astro T Podcast and saying I don't know a lot about sidereal. A lot of people have a lot of ego, and yeah, but I'm excited for the future. I feel like I'm embarking on a new path. Thank you for teaching me a lot today.
You're very welcome to allow people to realize that there's other things out there to explore about knowing yourself. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to share it. I feel truly honored to be here.
And then also, what are you letting go after this podcast?
What am I letting go of? I'm letting go of the fear of being seen and being heard, because that's what I allowed myself to show up as here with my message. Maybe flawed, maybe not perfect. We had a little bloopers, right? But this is me, and I give myself that grace.
I'm letting the idea of what consistency looks like go. I feel like a goal of mine is to always be posting once a week. But sometimes, you know,
life happens,
and just because the posting's not happening on the consistency aspect, like as if I'm a machine, doesn't mean I'm not thinking of new ways of creating, connecting. Everything has its due process. Give yourself the due process of understanding, learning. Again, save this podcast, revisit it, come back to it. Please hit up my dear friend here for your own sidereal chart reading. I'm definitely going to be getting mine.
I just want to thank you for opening up this space for this very important conversation in astrology. I think it takes a true open heart to be able to debate subjects that you might be unsure about, right? Or that might challenge your own point of view. And it's definitely needed. So thank you.
Thank you. And again, guys, stay happy, stay grateful, and I'll see you next time. Love you.
Guys.
Bye.